Welcome back again. My name's Hiro. In this video, we're going to be talking about what I consider the core techniques of my great weapon style. First one we're going to talk about, I call it the pop thrust. Duke Mark calls it a snap thrust. I learned it from Duke Mark. At some point, I started calling it pop thrust instead of a snap thrust, and the name stuck. So basically, it's like halfway between a cut and a thrust. So it basically looks like this. I'm casting my weapon forward and hitting with the tip. My weapon is usually about a 15-degree angle with the ground as I hit. As far as power goes, even though you're essentially cutting with the tip, it still hits with a lot of power. It definitely doesn't feel tippy like you would think. So the pop thrust is really good as a primary killing attack. In fact, I think most of the kills I've ever gotten have been with pop thrusts. It's good as the first attack in a combo, or as a feint to set up other attacks. So if I were to throw a pop thrust into an onside head, or pop thrust into an offside head, or even once my opponent fears that pop thrust, I can even just fake it and move to something else. It's also good for probing your opponent to see what they'll do. So, for example, if I were to throw a pop thrust at a sword and shield opponent, and they kind of jerk forward like this, then that tells me that they want to charge me, and so at that point I need to get ready to play bullfighter. If I throw a pop thrust and they start, they turtle up like this, then I know that means they want to play defense. One thing about the pop thrust is you want to aim for the eye slot. If I hit above the eye slot, if I hit too high on the forehead, then I will usually tell my opponent not to take that unless it hits really hard and like rocks their head back. Reason being is because, like I said in a previous video, our armor standards, our calibration standards are supposed to be based on wearing Norman armor. And so hitting someone with a quick thrust like that to a Norman conical helm, if it's too high on their helm, it's not likely to do a lot of damage to them. So once again, the pop thrust basically looks like this. Like I said, you want to feel like you're casting it out rather than cutting. As when I throw this, my tip usually travels in a straight line to the target. It doesn't arc at all. If I were to switch to a longer weapon, even though longer weapon I have to twist my hips a little bit more, use a little bit different stance, I can still throw the pop thrust just fine. So, like I said, my hands are shooting the weapon. It's usually about a 15-degree angle with the ground. If I'm having trouble getting over the edge of the opponent's shield, then you can use a high angle pop thrust, where you just focus on lifting the back of the weapon higher so that it hits at more parallel to the ground instead of at an angle. Sometimes, depending on how the opponent's got their shield and sword and whatever, if you try this, sometimes they'll actually guide the weapon into their own face. So that's kind of amusing when it happens. With the normal pop thrust, I tend to guide it more with my top hand, where with the high angle version, I tend to guide it more with my bottom hand. One thing to keep in mind is that it is possible to blind yourself when you're throwing the shot. Okay, if you turn your bottom hand up, palm up, kind of like when you're doing the sliding spear thrust, then that helps with this shot. You need to keep your hands relaxed and soft for it to work. Once again, going back to gauntlets, if your gauntlets force you into a hammer grip, then that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to throw this shot very easily. So going back to this, it's possible to blind yourself. So to avoid that, either make sure you don't go above your nose, or just put it off to the side a little bit. So face the camera and just throwing it like that or like that instead of right up into my face. So that's pop thrust and the high angle pop thrust. Like I said, they're super useful. I think most of the kills I've ever gotten have been with those two shots. You can also do a double tap, which is just 2 pop thrusts right in a row. So in the movie Zombieland, first 2 rules are number 1, cardio, number 2, double tap. Those are both good rules for SAA fighting as well. So next I want to talk about the high angle onside head, or also known as a flat snap. So remember when we went over basic shots, when I throw a basic onside head, my weapon's at about a 15-degree angle with the ground. When I throw the high angle version, I want to raise my hands higher so that that angle is about a negative 15-degree angle with the ground. This is just like when you throw a flat snap with a one-handed sword and you end with your hand higher than your tip. Same thing. So with the high angle onside head or the flat snap, it's better for getting over shields compared to the basic onside head. It also protects your head as you attack, because my weapon's in the trajectory of where my opponent's headshot would be coming. That said, it does leave your belly a little bit exposed. So that's why you want to do a pivot step, because that A, helps with power generation, and B, moves you off the line so that your opponent's going to have a harder time hitting you in the belly. After throwing this, I will usually immediately recover into an A-frame block, again, because that helps protect my belly better. When you throw the high angle onside head or the flat snap from high guard, it kind of comes in a kind of a scooping trajectory. So I'll face the camera, it looks like this. Duke Tamiki calls this the ice cream scoop. And so even though the shot comes in at an angle, because of the scooping trajectory, it still hits parallel to the opponent's helm. Sometimes it can let you power through the opponent's guard, especially if they're doing this kind of thing. If you hit right here, then you can power through their guard and still hit their head. Alright, last shot I'm going to cover in this video is called the back edge onside head, or the Zwerchhau. Zwerchhau is German. It means thwart hew or thwart cut. It's one of the 5 core techniques of German longsword manuals. They're sometimes called hidden cuts or master cuts. If you only learn one thing from this class, it should be the Zwerchhau. That's how important I consider this shot. And so basically what the shot looks like is, as I throw the shot, I'm twisting the weapon in my hands to hit with the back edge instead of the front edge. So I'm going to come closer to the camera a little bit. And so as I throw the shot, I let my top hand relax, and the weapon rotates about 90 degrees in my hand. And so I'm mostly controlling that rotation with my bottom hand. If your gauntlets allow you to do a thumb grip, then that helps with that shot. And so thumb grip basically looks like, so here's a normal grip, and then thumb grip looks like that. From normal grip to thumb grip. That sometimes helps with this attack. That said, you don't need to be able to do a thumb grip to do it, because my gauntlets are really bulky, don't allow me to do a thumb grip, but I can still do this shot just fine with my gauntlets on. So once again, I'm going to demonstrate it. So pay attention to the rotation of the weapon. I hope that the sun is not too bright, and so you can see the markings on my weapon, but trying to do it really slowly so you can see how it rotates. I'm also doing a pivot step, because pivot step helps with power generation and also helps protect me better from my opponent's counterattacks. Edge alignment is really important with this attack. You want to practice it until you can feel where the edge is without looking. If you shave down the sides of your haft or handle, then that definitely helps. These ones aren't shaved down yet, but I'm planning to do so in the future because it really does help. So like I said earlier, it's really good for getting over shields, just like the high angle onside head or the flat snap. The Zwerchhau has a good angle. It's really good for getting it around shields. Not only is the angle here favorable, but it also hits slightly farther back on the helm compared to the flat snap. So that's useful as well. It's not only useful against shields, it's also useful against great weapons. Most of the time when you're throwing this shot, the rotation will be in a mostly horizontal plane. But you can throw it so that the rotational plane is kind of an angle. This is good for if you were to throw an offside body into a Zwerchhau, because then the rotational plane stays the same throughout the entire movement. If you want more details on the Zwerchhau, I'm going to go over it more in the next several sections. It's kind of a hard shot to learn. You're just going to have to spend some time on the pedal trying to learn it. But if you need more demonstration, then send me a message and I'll try to do a video focusing purely on the Zwerchhau and nothing else. So that's it for this video. I hope to catch you in the next one.